so as to highlight this morning the important fact about English that its vowels undergo weakening, which is a fundamental truth about English vowels. And it means that the English vowel system is really rather complicated. Because on the one hand, we have to consider what are the strong vowels, that is, the vowels that can occur in a stressed syllable. But on the other hand, we have also to consider what happens when these vowels become weakened and change their quality, which they do in certain unstressed syllables. So, first of all, there's a general point we have to make about strong vowels. Everybody knows that English vowels can be either short or long. Now, there are some languages where the difference between short and long vowels is just a matter of duration. Long vowels last longer than short vowels. But in English, and more generally in the Germanic languages, English being one of the Germanic languages, there is a more complicated relationship. Namely, that long vowels and diphthongs can occur freely in all kinds of syllables, whereas short vowels have to have a following consonant. So here at the top, we've got the green box, examples of long vowels and diphthongs. We have words like see, bar, stir, day, no. And you can see that those vowels, long vowels and diphthongs, can occur in a word without a following consonant. On the other hand, if we consider the short vowels as they're traditionally known, we notice that we cannot have such words as, this asterisk means you can't have it, you can't have sick, you can't have bad, you can't have stuck, you can't have dead, you can't have not. In pronouncing these, I'm going against English rules. What we do get is words such as sick, bad, stuck, death, not. I hope you could recognize those words. I haven't written them in ordinary spelling, but I hope you could recognize what they are. These are fine. These are words in which the short vowel is followed by a consonant. Now, this is fundamentally different from the situation in many languages where there is no such restriction upon the distribution of vowels. And it means that a word like bad, not good, conforms very exactly to the expectations of English phonology. Whereas there are many of you in whose language a word like bad is actually rather strange. It's not permitted because it's got a final consonant or a final voiced consonant. Many languages don't allow that. But English does, which not only allows it, but in a sense requires it if we're to have a short vowel. So this is a very basic and fundamental point about English long vowels and short vowels. Having made that point, let's first of all then look at English short vowels. I'm not sure how successful this idea is to have pretty pictures to entertain you, but there's a picture of a kit, a foot, a dress, a strut, a tram, and a lot, illustrating the 6 stressable short vowels of English, each of them, of course, with a following consonant, as they have to have. They're set out in a kind of schematic diagram, which you'll find reproduced on your handout in the leftmost box, with those typical keywords for these different vowels. Well, I can pronounce them for you and thereby demonstrate them, as I just have done, but we also particularly when in groups 1 or 2, need to be able to place them on a vowel chart. And there is a traditional vowel quadrilateral, based, as you will know, upon the cardinal vowels at its node points. And those are typical placements of the English short vowels I and kit, which is close-ish and frontish, but not I, not git, but kit, relaxed, laxed. The vowel dress, about halfway between close and open. The vowel trap, nearly fully open, varied, some people make it a bit closer, trap, others a bit open and trap, down here somewhere. The vowel strut, which is central and pretty open, strut. The back rounded vowel of lot, and the much closer, vaguely rounded vowel of foot. Well, those are typical positions such as you will find in the textbooks. There is quite a bit of leeway in this, in the sense that different speakers do different things, but equally there are limits to this leeway. Foreign students can't just do anything. Now, for the remaining vowels, the long vowels and diphthongs, I've divided them into 3 different groups, which you will find on the handout in the 3 boxes there. I've classified them phonetically into these 3 groups. The first group, E, A, I, Oi, being the vowels which are close front, E area, or move towards the close front area. The 3 diphthongs, A, I, Oi, move towards the E area. You'll notice we usually write them with this I symbol rather than an E symbol at the end. And this is because typically they don't get all the way to the maximally close front area. We don't say face, price. We say face, price. So they are fairly relaxed throughout face, price, choice. There is a difficulty with English long vowels and diphthongs in that the borderline between long vowels and diphthongs is not clear. That is to say, you could justifiably classify E as a kind of diphthong. E, 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 E. Not much of a movement, but a little bit of movement. We don't typically say 1, 2, 3 with pure long vowels, monophthongs. 2, 3, we say 2, 3. E, U, U, E. A little bit of movement there. You mustn't exaggerate the movement or it sounds regional, particularly, for example, in the London region you get 2, 3, as we shall see this afternoon. So there are difficult social matters here that if you do too much of this diphthonging, it can sound vulgar. But there are 4 vowels in this area. If we plot them on a vowel chart, we're concerned just with those. And here we see that E, this is pretty close front. A moves from a mid-front area closer, face. I moves from a fairly open area, price closer, and Oi from a back mid-rounded area to the close front area. So they all end up in this area, Oi. E, A, I, Oi. Next set of vowels we look at are the close back set. Here we've got long oo, which is basically a close back rounded vowel, goose, and then 2 diphthongs, O as in goat, and ow as in mouth. O as in goat typically starts with a mid-central quality, moving towards O, 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 ow, with some kind of fairly open quality, ow, again moving towards O. Now the phonetic symbols we choose to represent the starting points of these diphthongs are accurate for the kind of received pronunciation that we teach you. But again, they vary a good deal in different kinds of English. In the English of 100, 150 years ago in England, and still in some kinds of American English, we have rounding throughout the goat vowel, so O. This is now not mainstream in England. So O. With the ow vowel, again the question is how front or back the quality should be. There are those who say ow, and there are those who say ow, and there are things in between. We recommend this ow quality for general purpose. So plotting them on the chart again. We're talking about these ones. Oo up here, close back, not absolutely back. O starting in the middle, moving close back. O, and ow starting down here, open. Ooh. Now, what is this extra symbol I've added here? Many speakers of English, when there is an L following, in a word like whole, use a rather different quality. That is, instead of saying whole, O plus whole, they say whole. The vowel starting point is attracted to the darkness of the L, whole. And this is really for the benefit of my native speaking students, who typically complain if I don't give them a special symbol for this variant O that they use before dark L. I don't really use it myself, so I don't feel the need for this symbol, but that's why it's on this handout. I think from the point of view of foreign learners, it can well be ignored, at least today, though the situation in 50 years' time may be different. We've got one further set of vowels that we have to deal with. And these are the ones that are not moving towards the I or U areas. So we start with the one that's right in the middle, the of nurse. This is a vowel which is in the middle of the vowel area. It's not close, it's not open, it's not front, it's not back. It's the way we hesitate in my kind of English. If I'm thinking what to say, what shall I do next? Now, you can only hesitate with if you have that sound in your repertoire. So some of you, in your languages, you may hesitate with e or with r because you don't have Some languages you hesitate with or with well, we hesitate with so for us it seems a very easy sound. Historically, of course, it had an R element in it, and Americans mostly still have that R element and say nurse rather than nurse. If you do that, that's not a disaster, but we don't do it. The other vowels here are diphthongs moving towards the area, so near, square, and cure. And then there are two monophthongs, that's vowels with unchanging quality. The back rounded O of thought, and the open unrounded R of start. Again, we see how difficult it is to draw the line between diphthongs and long vowels. First of all, the vowel of square, I've presented it as a diphthong, but there are many people who pronounce it as a monophthong and say square. Rather than sitting on a chair, they sit on a chair. On a bus, rather than pay the fare, they pay the fare. And there are some dictionaries using IPA which present this now as a monophthong, the Oxford dictionaries. It's not a big issue in the sense that it doesn't matter at all whether you say air or air. to my ear, the air variant still has a certain regional flavour. It reminds me of Birmingham or the north of England. So it seems to me that for general purposes, in a London-centred English-speaking world, we have to take the diphthong, the air, as the basic one. So I'm happy to continue to present it as a diphthong. On the other hand, when we come to or, you could equally well treat this as a diphthong and have or there. Particularly at the end of a word, 1, 2, 3, 4, I say. But there are plenty of people who say 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't encourage this, mainly because I don't want to encourage the Japanese to talk about the doa. Because no kind of English pronounces that as a doa, except Japanese English. And this is sort of institutionalized in Japan as the way to pronounce this diphthong in this position, but it's very strange because you don't have that in American English, you don't have that in any kind of English. You can say door with a kind of centering schwa end to the diphthong perhaps, but most people have a monophthong there, door, and that's what we now recommend. So, our last group here, there's the nurse in the middle. Here's the ear of near, the air, square, and the poor or cure. Monophthong, all, thought, are, start. Now this rather complicated diagram, you can see, has two lots of arrows, because this wants to reflect the fact that in the end of a word, we tend to get a rather open equality. In other words, if we take a word like near, come and stand near, and compare that with beard, where there's a following consonant, typically people don't say beard with an quality at the end, though they might say near with an quality at the end. When there's a consonant, we get a closer quality. Beard. Scarce. Compare near and fair with the rather open qualities. I don't think this is a matter that foreign students need to worry about on the whole. It probably is below the level at which everybody can perceive the matter, but for describing native speaker speech, we do need to know that. Okay. We've got these rather large number of vowels in stressed syllables. So handouts. What we haven't yet discussed is what happens in other kinds of syllables. In stressed syllables, it is, of course, important to distinguish all the vowels from one another, because they typically have the power of distinguishing pairs of words. So you'll all be familiar already, or if not already, you soon will be, with the contrast between, for example, long E as in sheep and short E as in ship. There you've got a sheep and a ship. One's a sheep, an animal, the other is a ship, a vessel. And we must make the difference between them. So we give you ear training about this. You have to say, which is the sheep, which is the ship, is this a ship, no it's a sheep, is it a sheep, no it's a ship. And similarly with other pairs, which you can see at the bottom there, green, grin, green is a colour, grin is a smile. Cheek and chick, cheek, part of your face, chick, a baby bird. Read and rid, and lots of other similar pairs. And it's very important to hear and to make this distinction in strong syllables. But what about words like happy? At the end of a word like happy, That's a weak syllable. Doesn't have stress, couldn't have stress. And in that position, it doesn't matter. We don't need to make the difference between E and I. Now, traditionally, this was taught as being short I, like in ship, the vessel. But it seems to be the case that more and more younger people now pronounce this with a quality more like the E of sheep. But it doesn't matter, and nobody's listening, and nobody's paying any attention, because in weak positions, there is no possibility of making a distinction between words. So whether you say happy, or happy, or something in between, happy, we're not interested. It all does. We speak then of a neutralization of this opposition, the suspension of the contrast that would otherwise be made. And it applies at the end of happy, coffee, valley, words of that type, city, and so on. And also before another vowel in words like glorious. What have we got after the R in glorious? Is it glorious long, or is it glorious short? I don't know, it's too quick to tell. We say glorious, glorious. Durationally, yes, it's short, but in quality, really, it doesn't matter at all. So here again, we've got this neutralization of the contrast whenever it's followed by another vowel. And then what about function words, pronouns and things, words like me? Now, when we say this word in isolation, or when we accent it, me, give it to me, then it's the long vowel, E. But when it's unstressed, tell me, what are you going to do? Tell me. What's happening there? Well, there we've got again the neutralization of the contrast. Traditionally, this was presented as a short vowel, a weak form of me, but it isn't exactly me, as it would be. We can't have a stressable short vowel, as you know, without a final consonant. So here we've not actually got the short vowel, we've got this neutralization, this happy vowel, as we sometimes call it. And modern pronunciation dictionaries and textbooks all use this special symbol, the letter I, with no dots, but not the small cap I, to indicate this compromised vowel, this intermediate vowel, this indeterminate vowel that we have in cases like this. If you look at the handout, you will see that it refers, point 2, not only to the symbol letter I, but also the letter U. Because we have the same thing when we compare oo long and oo short, as in food and good, respectively. Contrast there in stressable syllables, but in the pronoun you, again we end up with a kind of neutralized you. Thank you. It's short in duration. It isn't exactly ooh, it isn't exactly oh. It's some compromise. Thank you. So there's the thank you vowel, which corresponds exactly to the happy vowel. And again, we get it not only at the ends of words, but also predecantically, that is, before another vowel. So on your handout, you've got the examples: radiation, there it is before the vowel A, radiation, glorious we have, he isn't, weak form of P, and then for oo, situation, again, is that oo or is it oo? It's neither, it's both. It's this compromise vowel. Situation. Influence, the same thing there. Influence. And 2, the weak form used before a vowel sound is this oo. To ask, to answer, to announce, to. Before a consonant we say to come, to go, to be, to think. Before a vowel we say to ask. Well, on the whole, there is a new trend now that people say to, and I've got to stop, to ask. We're not teaching you that. So, theoretical point, on the handout, neutralization is demonstrated by same speaker fluctuation. That is to say, the same speaker saying the same word repeatedly may sometimes use something more E-like, sometimes something more Ed-like. One moment I say happy, next moment I say happy. Doesn't matter. Fluctuation. The use of phonetically intermediate sounds, something that is neither E nor E, but E, intermediate between them. And by the use of indeterminate sounds. Situation. It happens so fast you can't tell whether it's oo or o. It's indeterminate. We, in transcription, still use these special symbols when we add inflectional endings. So baby has the happy vowel, so does babies. Carried has the happy vowel, so does carried. Dirty has the happy vowel, so does dirty. Pretty has the happy vowel, so does prettier. They are distinct from the strong vowels. We can see the difference if we take a word like pedigree, which ends in long E, pedigree, and compare that with mimicry, which, however you say it, is not mimicry, but is mimicry, with the happy vowel at the end. Cuckoo always ends in long oo, in English, thank you, as the compromise vowel. And this is comparable to the difference between strong and weak vowels that we see in the noun and insert compared with a consonant which has a schwa. So what I'm demonstrating here for the advanced students is the maintaining in unstressed syllables of the distinction between strong vowels and weak vowels, because we can still get strong vowels in unstressed syllables. Right, well, weakening is something that we have in English which complicates the description of English vowels. Here we compare the noun anatomy and the adjective anatomical. As you can see by comparing the transcriptions, or by listening to me when I say them, we get differences in the vowels at the beginning of this word. The first vowel in noun is anatomy, anatomy, anatomy. The first vowel in the adjective is anatomical, anatomical. The second vowel in the noun is anatomy, anatomy. The second vowel in the adjective is anatomical, anatomical. And this is because the choice of vowel is sensitive to the stress pattern. The effects of the suffixes, the ik in particular, causes the placement of the main stress in this word to fluctuate, to vary depending on the part of speech we have. And depending on the stress placement, we get these changes in the vowels. Because the syllable nat is stressed in anatomy, it keeps a strong vowel, whereas the syllable before and after weaken anatomy. Anatomy. In the case of anatomical, we stress the syllable before the ik, the regular rule. So tom is the main stress. We have therefore weak vowels before and after the tom. Atomical, anatomical, anatomical. English, again like the other Germanic languages, has a further rule that says you cannot have two weak syllables at the beginning of a word. So we couldn't weaken both of the first two syllables. We couldn't say anatomical. That goes against the rules of English. Therefore, we have to have a strong first syllable. And we have this alternation of strong and weak. Anatomical. And therefore, we have a strong vowel. And by most analyses, a secondary stress on the first syllable. Here on the screen we've got the words at and can. As typical examples are function words that have a strong form and a weak form. The strong form is a, the weak form is at. We say at when we stress this word for some reason. But of course we don't usually stress it. It's a function word. It gets thrown away in the middle of a sentence. We say it gets cold at night. It gets cold at night. Cold at night. Cold at night. The movie starts at 7. The movie starts at 7. Look at me. Look at me. Can. We can can. You can all go to the party. You can all go to the party. They can stop when they like. They can stop. What can I say? What can I say? What can I say? This is why people who are not good at listening comprehension have difficulty. Because this kind of word, you don't notice it. Look at me. We get look, we get me, we don't hear it. What can I say? You hear what, you hear say, you miss can I in the middle. What can I say? What can I say? What can I say? What can I say? So, unstressed function words typically weaken, which makes them difficult to recognize. When do we stress them? When do we pronounce them strong? Well, we shall in due course look at special positions, notably at the end, where they are often strong. But in general, we only do this when we want to emphasize them. So it gets cold at night. Would I ever want to say that? Only if I wanted to make a contrast between at night and what contrast could there be? I don't know. It's difficult to imagine it. Now you see the problem. Foreign students say, it gets cold at night. We hear cold at night. We hear at. We say, why is this person emphasizing this word at? What is this special meaning attached to at that is being signaled by this speaker? And I'm afraid the only possible meaning is, I am foreign. I am pronouncing it in a funny way. So that's why it causes problems of communication. Because native speakers hearing strong at think you must be signaling something. They can stop when they like. Well, now the only reason for stressing can, they can stop when they like, would be if there were some expectation of a negative and you're emphasizing the positive. So unless you have to emphasize the positive, then you ought to weaken it. They can stop. They can do it. If you say they can do it, we think, oh, was somebody forbidding it? Or we think, oh, has this person learned American English and is saying can't, the negative? We say it as can't, which gives you a different vowel from the negative from the positive. But in general, the expectation is for weakening. And it's when our expectation is to throw by hearing a strong form that we get problems. Look back at the handout now. We've got some more examples, which I haven't got pictures for, more function words of, weak form of. So we say a cup of tea, a cup of tea, a glass of wine. If I hear a glass of wine, what do I think? A glass of wine? Now, why is this person emphasizing of? Contrast with a glass full wine or something? And of course we have to consider this and quickly reject it, but it slows everything down. It distracts us from listening to your message. Now your aim as foreign speakers of English, depending on your personal targets and so on, it may or may not be to speak English to sound like a native speaker. Some of you will have that aim and objective, others don't want to have it. Okay, whatever you choose. But your aim must be to get your message across without difficulty. And some kinds of pronunciation error act as a block to getting your message across because they distract the listener. They make the listener pay attention to something that you don't want them to pay attention to. So that's why, just from the point of view of communication, it's a good thing to take on board, to take into account some of these things we're telling you about, which might seem complications and unnecessary, but there they are. They're what are typically part of English. Then, weak form, them. Can you see them? See them, them. Tell them what to do. Are, weak form, What are those things over there? What are those things? They ready? Are they ready? That means, are they ready? You hardly hear it at all. Are they ready? Are they ready? At the end of a sentence, yes, they are. And we'll stress it then, it's marked positive. But in many sentence medial positions, you get this weakening to them. Me, you, we've discussed already. The general point about strong and weak vowels, again for the theoretical point of view, is also supported by these words that fluctuate in their pronunciation. You can either say Monday, or you can say Monday. This tells us that E is the weak variant of A. Sunday, Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday, holiday, holiday. O and we can say November, or we can say November. We can say to obey someone, or to obey someone, obey. Again, strong and weak relationship. Even interesting things that happen when people are singing. Now the word angel, what does that got before the L? We usually think of this as a schwa, angel, or as a syllabic consonant, or. But if you listen to people singing in church, you may hear, angels from the realms of glory, angels. Okay, for special things like singing, you get an E there. Singing is characterized by many, many strong vowels, where in ordinary speech we would use weak vowels. So there is a real process of weakening that native speakers have as part of their knowledge of the language. Oh, what a beautiful melody! Melody. Nobody says melody in ordinary life. We say melody. Melody. With a schwa. Melody. So, again, foreign students typically use too many strong vowels. It makes it sound as if you're singing or declaiming or doing some other strange, special activity. Well, we're rather running out of time to discuss these vowels. There they are laid out as about 4 on the handout. We've certainly got these 3 special vowels, I, U, and schwa, which are only found in weak syllables. We can also get 2 other vowels in my kind of English in weak syllables. These 2, which are the I, the short I, same sound in all 3 syllables with finishing. Presumably it's strong in the fin, but weak in the ishing bits, but it sounds the same. Basic, valid distress. The interesting point here is what happens in Australian English, because Australians, for weak I, typically use a schwa. So where I say valid, a valid argument, an Australian would say a valid argument. A valid with an in it. So that's, again, theoretically interesting. It demonstrates this point about weak vowels. Australian doesn't have a weak I in the way that we do in Britain. We also have this weak U in words like stimulus, executive, virulent, although there's quite a strong trend to replace this with schwa and say stimulus, executive, virulent. 4.3 on the handout, tiresomely, yes, although a stressed syllable has to contain a strong vowel, the converse is not true. So you can have unstressed syllables
with strong vowels. Obviously in compounds, words like bedtime, time is unstressed but has a strong vowel, the diphthong I. But there are also non-compound words like acorn, the fruit of the oak tree, which is called acorn, and not acre, and not acorn, but acorn. My colleagues, stress on the col, but E is still E, doesn't weaken. Chemicals like sulfate, words like gymnast, the noun torment. And last thing before we run out of time is syllabic consonants. English has these N's and L's, and sometimes M's and R's, which are syllabic. That is to say, if we have a word like suddenly, it has 3 syllables. Suddenly. Suddenly. And yet, it only seems to have 2 vowels. I. What's happening? Suddenly. Well, what is happening pretty clearly is that this really has a schwa, an in the second syllable. Suddenly. But we have a rule that takes and turns it into which is different from an ordinary N in that it occupies a syllable to itself. It is syllabic. So suddenly has 3 syllables. Now it is always possible with these words to pronounce them without forming the syllabic consonant. That is, you can say suddenly. It tends to be for us a childish pronunciation. Suddenly. Pardon? Suddenly. So, if you want to sound adult, it's advisable to learn to do syllabic consonants and say suddenly and pardon. And likewise with the other ones. What's the example we've got? Medal. Could be medal, but usually medal. Little. Could be little, but much better. Little. With M, it's rather rare, but there are 1 or 2 words like blossom, often pronounced blossom. Gathering, often pronounced gathering. The of course, is much commoner in American English, where it applies to all these words like father, where becomes Well, we'll perhaps come back to those in the next lecture. That's all for this morning. Thank you very much.